right, well, it's, according to my watch, it's 15:02. It's 3:02 for everyone else, so let's just go ahead and start our meeting. Call the meeting to order. The first item is public comments. Seeing no public here, I will move on to the second item on the agenda, which is the review of the May 8th, 2023 meeting minutes. Do we have any comments or additions or corrections that anybody saw?
Move that we accept it.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we accept the minutes as submitted. All those in favor? Aye. Let's move on. The 2022 Marina Financial Report with David Goldman. I'm assuming that's David Goldman.
This is Mr. David Goldman. Yes.
How are you, sir? Welcome.
Good.
Welcome to our meeting. And we'll, I think we've got an opportunity to look at the revenue and expenditures by fund, which I found to be clear as mud. So, but I did make a couple notes today, well before this meeting. So we'll turn it over to you, sir.
Sure. Yeah, this shows, so the Marina Fund has a couple funds. The main fund is your Fund 410, where all your operating occurs. You have another Fund 440, where all your capital projects occur. So those two are reported together in the financials to the state auditors. The same with all the other enterprise funds too, like water has a capital fund. So looks like here we got the main fund, 410. So you can see the first row there, you got the beginning net position or beginning fund balance. That's something that we're required by law to put in an estimate of beginning fund resources that you have in there. Those are unencumbered fund resources. The actuals are always zero. It's just there. That's what you put in there. And then you can see the actuals as you go down the road. You know, just kind of take it down.
No, wait, excuse me, why is the actual zero?
Oh, that's just a resource. It's just you're being unencumbered. That's just unencumbered fund balance. We have to do that for every fund. You just do a calculation to estimate the amount of unencumbered fund balance every fund has. And we have to put it in the budget as a resource. Yeah, it's not like that in other states. I looked at, like Washington State. That's what we have to do.
So you're saying effectively every line item has to have a balance of some sort? Is that what you just said?
No, fund like
Every fund.
Yeah. Like, so this is like your unencumbered resources, basically.
Okay.
You know, that are available to use. You know,
So it's like a reserve.
Yeah. It's like an unencumbered reserve because you do have another reserve, a $257,000 bond reserve. You know, and then you do have your mandatory reserve policy, which is, I think, what is that? Two months?
2 months.
Yeah, like 16.67%. And that's not included in that number, but that's like another mandatory reserve. All the operating funds have that. So anyhow, so this is the unencumbered amount. So yeah, and then you could see in the second row all the actuals for every one of these items. You just go down to the bottom, and then you get that. We have a transfer in. That's basically what happened there, and this happens in all the funds that we work with. At the end of the year, we take a look at how much money is in every capital project fund and compare that to what was approved by the council that was supposed to have that cash in there. And if we find that there's extra cash in like your capital projects fund, like we did here, we transfer the cash back into your operating fund. So that's what that money is. The reason why it was large in 2022 is because you had a number of projects that were completed. And this gets a little bit complicated with accounting, but basically the projects are all done in your capital project fund, Fund 440. When they're completed, they turn into assets. So what we have to do is an accounting entry, which basically takes this thing called construction in progress out of 440 and puts the completed asset into your main fund, Fund 410. And all that does with the accounting fund to balance it, it just basically takes cash out of 410 and sticks it in the 440. I don't know why. It does the same thing with the water fund and wastewater fund when things are done. So we have another process at the end of the year where we go through every capital project fund and we just say, okay, what did the council approve? How much is left on that project? Okay, here's all the balances. and then how much is actually in there. And whenever we find there's extra money sitting in there, we just move it over to the operating.
I thought I had an exclusive meeting. Can I ask, we're talking about this transfers in, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying that there was $902,000 of completed projects funds?
$775,000 of completed projects.
Okay.
But when we did the other item that we do at the end of the year to look at how much should be in 440, there was 902,000 that was more than we needed in front of 440, but we just moved it over to 410.
Can you give us, what's an example of the projects we completed?
It'd be like the breakwater repair, those sorts of
Yeah, those
the
insurance
big
repairs.
projects, those big insurance projects that were.
But how is that real? That's not revenue. It is.
It is revenue coming from another account into this account, but it's not revenue in the sense of.
So realistically,
Storage or
so let me go back. I'm just a poor,
Yeah.
engineer, okay? So the 2022 budget, we budgeted for a little over $3 million, correct?
Mhm.
And in the first, in period, so this is the actual period, so this is a completed 2022 snapshot.
Yeah.
Okay, so at the end of 2022, our revenues, the total revenues for the Marina were $3,091,000. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And now let me go to expenditures. So the completed expenditures, I guess if we go to page 4 of this document, it's right here. The total expenditures. So we made effectively $645,000 last year.
Yes.
Okay. Paul Sorensen has indicated that we've only made about an average of about $180,000 a year. Is that
Yes.
correct?
That's correct.
I'm saying.
Yes.
So how did we, this document says we made $645,000. Paul Sorensen says we made $180,000, and we've made $180,000 for the past
Averaged out.
average number of years.
Yes, that's correct.
So that doesn't
This-
make sense to me. All right, and you're gonna tell me this includes the
transfer.
the transfer, okay? Well, let's go back to 2021. Can we do this off the top of your head, sir? Can we go back to 2021?
Yeah.
All right. How much did we make in
I
2021?
actually have the 2021.
Okay. Hi, Ken, welcome.
Just dashed across the state.
You can see, I've been good.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, expenditures. I don't, it just list the revenues.
I'm always looking.
That's this is a new report that
Okay.
that Dave just showed me how to run, so.
Okay, so we have to
So
do
they
that.
are more streamlined.
Yes.
It was actually really easy to read.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what I like.
Okay, so the revenues total were $1,901,000.
That was the revenue?
That was the revenue.
Then how would
And the expenditures were $1,647,000. So that still looks like we made 150 or so.
why would the revenues in 2021 be so much less than the revenue in 2022?
They got the transfer.
The transfer was, well, the $900,000 transfer?
Yeah. That makes.
Now
Yeah.
you're back.
So
Okay.
it's like, we still have questions.
Well, the question is, I'm just trying to justify or rationalize Paul's number that we only made $185,000 over the last couple of years.
His was an average.
An average,
Yeah.
but realistically, I knew it, when we really looked into this, and I've been on this committee a fairly long time, and when we've looked into this over the years, and we've always made considerably more than $180,000 going forward, and we've always been able to put money into an account, and the last time we've had huge expenditures was the walkway ramp and the electrical repair on CDOT. That was the only time we took a bunch of money out of the fund and paid something off. My question will
Well,
always
but
be,
we did it with the bond buyback too, right?
well, but that was,
Well, that's 2 years ago.
that was,
Yeah.
That was 20
The bond,
2020 last year.
you're paying out, yeah, in 21, we
20
refinanced
yeah,
it.
20
Yeah.
and 21.
You're paying
Yeah.
out that bond
Yeah.
this year, next year, till 25, we'll be done with it.
Right.
Yeah, we are, our debt service increased.
Yeah.
For 2022, 23.
Right.
Whatever, what is it?
Well, 22, yes, and 23.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I love this report, quite frankly, because it is simple to read. And it was, but it does, in a vacuum, it doesn't tell us anything unless I can look at the previous years and see where we are relative to, where we want to go.
I can make those available to you. It's not-
That would help.
If we can get that, the 2021 actual, is that what you want to see?
Well, I think as a committee, we need to verify what Paul was saying. Yeah.
We did, yeah. He wasn't talking about this past year, 2022, when he was talking about estimating about 180,000.
Yeah.
I
For the previous.
No, he
the
didn't
previous
include
3 years.
2022.
He didn't have,
No, no.
he didn't have these numbers.
Because he started the study before.
I haven't through the year, so.
But it just seems to me that we ought to be making a lot more money than that based on what we had been making in the past. It just doesn't make sense to me. Unless there's, and the only way to find out is there's an unusual expenditure in there that has cut into the profit.
So what was the line item you were questioning?
End of year.
Oh, I was
fund
there.
balance, year-over-year.
Their fund transfer.
Oh, you're talking about?
Yeah,
Would like an
900,000.
end of year fund balance year over year, so you can see that delta each year.
That
would be
was-
more of a snapshot.
That would certainly help.
Yeah.
That really would.
Yeah.
And I would also like to, I think I almost know what this is, but let me check my notes here for just 1 minute. And I would like to see over the last few years what the indirect cost allocation has been. Because I know what Chris budgeted for in 2022. He budgeted for 160,000, and in 2022 we wound up giving back to the city $204,000. And I would like to see where that has gone over the years.
And that has fluctuated.
And it's fluctuated, and the explanation, and sir, you might be able to give us the explanation as to why that indirect cost allocation number fluctuates year to year. Is it based on the revenue that we produce? Is it based on
It's
a
based,
fair
it's
share?
based on an allocation from various areas of the city. So for example, it's based on the human resource allocation, it's based on. the
Sure, like we have 5
administration
full-time employees or whatever it is, and that,
Yeah, so it's based on FTEs, it's also based on your actual.
It's the administration of payroll.
I would say the biggest
administration.
cost fluctuation with that comes from engineering driven projects. It's probably where.
Well, engineering, that's a different allocation.
Well, yeah, I noticed we
Engineering
have,
allocation
Yeah.
doesn't include engineering. You
I noticed we have another-
You do have an engineering allocation.
yeah, we have a $40,000 engineering.
Right.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes sense because we had all that breakwater repair
Yeah, you've
work
got-
done, and a lot of engineering work.
But so, I mean, we have that to 200, that means,
248.
yeah, right.
it's a lot of money when, we're
Yeah.
talking, when the next agenda item is talking about raising rates to demonstrate good faith towards the city it's insane. That part.
Yeah.
That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And so, anyway, let's go back. Sir, I didn't mean to dominate the conversation here, but, if, does anybody have any other comments? I'm sure we have a ton of questions.
I just, as we're going down the line here, what's a DOC grant?
The DOC grant,
That is
Department of Commerce. That's the
Department of Commerce.
the Commerce grant. Yeah,
We got $22,000 from.
that's the one that we got, if memory serves me correct, 400,000. And this was the last bit of billing, payback to us that they owe us.
That's the one that had to do with the Mariners Haven?
No, that's the one that has to do with, we bought the new pile hoops
Oh,
with that, and we had the business plan for the marina written with that as well.
Hmm.
So the pile hoops were roughly $375.
So the business plan for the marina was all, that was covered by a grant?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, you have a DOC grant, so the grants going into 410 would be for the operating and studies and stuff, Chris?
Mhm.
And the ones going into 440, we have a $370,000 actual DOC grant going into 440.
Right.
That would be for the project.
For the big pile hoops out on that.
Oh, okay.
and stuff like that. Yeah, those were expensive. Couldn't believe it.
The one thing I saw also was, we made more in diesel than we had anticipated, right?
So when we look at diesel and gas in revenue and both expenditures, when we do the budget, I just add 3% to the actual number of the previous years and build it up. The fluctuation is how much is that stuff going to cost and what can we sell it for?
So as it is,
It's
we
just a
did
gap.
make, you doubled what you had budgeted.
Yeah.
And so this was a 3% increase from 2021.
Right,
So that would have been somewhere around $211,000, somewhere in there.
right,
And we actually made $424,000.
Right.
That was, and the cost of that $424,000 was $370,000.
right.
So, we did pretty well.
Yeah,
on
yeah,
diesel.
we did really good.
well, it's still amounts to about 14-15%.
Right.
Which doesn't even cover our salaries.
It's not covering the labor.
No.
An advisory meeting?
I didn't find it at 440.
Yeah,
Are you public?
Yes.
Come on, man.
I have it.
It's interesting how you calculate this. Am I pumping it or is Peter pumping it?
Well, yeah, either way, I mean, somebody has to be on the dock there for the time.
Yeah.
Pump 100 gallons of fuel, it's gonna take.
It's travel.
Half an hour.
Where are you coming from too? F dot
Yeah,
or
right,
the
yeah,
shop?
exactly, yeah, so,
Is it a gallon or is it
yeah,
a
so I
hundred?
can't see that we're making any.
Well,
Yeah.
but we are making money on it. We're not making a whole lot of money on it.
No, we,
Well, not when you factor in.
not when you factor in.
But we don't have a dedicated fuel dock person. That's the point. These people are, it's all, they're paying the
What we've
labor.
typically done though is to model it, saying, okay, if 75% of so-and-so's time is that, then, we allocate it that
Sure.
way. And Chris does within the operation of the marina. And it allocates that employee's compensation to it's a made-up number, it's an estimated number, but it's
Sure.
pretty close. And it costs us a lot because, you have to have an attendant stand there the
Yeah,
whole time the
right.
fuel
Yeah.
takes place.
And that's good.
So, yeah,
It is good, because when we had that fuel line break and Dick was there, he's able to shut fuel off.
but, I mean, if we pump 100 gallons of fuel, we're making about 15, well, making, $20
So
or
we
so.
need to, we do need to isolate that as a category, fuel sales in general. And then decide whether we're priced appropriately or whatever. Pretty strongly, I agree with you that it doesn't make sense. It did at a time,
Yeah, I
last
think
time
you're
we
right.
adjusted the formula.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's changed.
Yeah.
Is that changed because we're paying more for labor?
A little bit.
Okay, and I'm just trying to wrap my arms around why we think that's changed. Fuel
Well,
has
the
done
timing
nothing
of
to go up.
fuel purchases
Right, you
and
bet.
deliveries is always. a
That's the hard
factor.
Yeah.
And that's why you have to look at a multi-year.
Yeah.
Period, at least 3 years.
But if you look at it over 3 years, it's roughly, we get 15% more
Right.
than what we pay for it. And that's not very much money.
No,
It is a,
in the fuel business, that's an acceptable margin, but we were able to buy fuel at a somewhat lower price. We ought to be able to make a few pennies more per gallon than we are. So, and
Or-
to allow discounts.
Especially when we're hurting for money a little.
Yeah, and, or whether that discounted fuel price makes it more attractive and you can pay
Yeah.
more, or you can sell more and make it up in volume, make it up in volume.
Right, and that's
I
really
just
what I
wanted to
love.
say that.
But if you're not making money,
Yeah.
there's no
Yeah.
benefit.
We're losing
to
a-
buying.
we're losing a
You're
dollar
losing
a
more
gallon.
more.
One thing that we try to do when we sell a bulk of the fuel, which are, these warmer months, is keep whomever we're gonna be using at the fuel dock near the fuel dock. So for example, we've had Dick pick the ends of those buildings year after year and do other stuff around there. So that's not using a resource coming from
Sure.
FDOT traditionally, if we can afford to do that personnel wise. So we do kind of consider who's doing what at the marina.
Sometimes Stephanie's down there.
Sometimes
Whoever.
Stephanie's down there, if the other people are out on FDOC or whatever, Ryan down there or whomever, so. It is a bit of a challenge, and one of the immeasurables about the fuel dock is how much gas mortgage is that driving. We can't really measure that other than the fact that we give that the discounts for that. But it does rarely does somebody get the quote unquote free night out of the fuel dock. They just don't, for some reason they don't. Usually it's about half a night or a third a night or so for some reason, so.
But that reduces transient mortgage income.
It reduces transient mortgage income, but what we don't know, the immeasurable is, are they coming there because they want to stay with us or are they
Yeah.
coming there to get the fuel? Had we not had the discount, would they still have come? That's what we can't measure, right?
No, you're right, you can't measure that, but what you can measure is the amount of boats that are coming for the fuel, because we have a fair amount of fuel options, not too far away.
Yeah.
But in my mind, if you're gonna put 500 gallons of fuel in your boat, it'd be foolish to try to do it in LaConner or Anacortes when you can do it in Oak Harbor. And if you're putting 500 gallons of fuel, you're gonna realize you're gonna save it.
Right.
And I think most people, they plan their, I do, at least I do. If I'm gonna get fuel, I plan on where I'm gonna buy it, because it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
So.
And diesel boats typically have a lot of tank space.
Right.
So, yeah, you can run it down to nothing and then buy a whole bunch of fuel based on price and so forth. Gas boats, not so much, because they burn through fuel a lot faster. That's why the crabbers buy up most of the gasoline.
Do we have any other, you're back,
No,
you're running the meeting, so,
No,
do we have any other questions about the indirect cost allocation? Do we have any other comments about that? Because I know that that's always been a sore subject with a lot of us.
Yeah, well, I guess, and I've said for years, it seems to me we should be getting the break on that particular cost, just because we perform we're a public park.
Where it's right there on the sign.
And I don't see why the marina tenants should have to pay the administrative costs for running a park.
That's exactly what we do. And so we have the people here who can answer that question. It says right on the sign that we are a marine park, yet we
Yeah.
receive nothing in terms of support from the Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
And that's not right. And then now the next item on the agenda is to talk about a rate increase to make it even more painful for the marine attendants. That, I'm frankly not in favor of. Does anybody have any additional comments about that?
Well, as it applies to the financials, I have kind of an abbreviated version of the financials. I need to get, the full year.
This was.
Well, I don't have any of the 440 accounts.
Oh, yeah, the 440,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
It's only one page.
Oh, okay.
What was on the 440 accounts?
There's capital improvement
Kind of,
projects.
Well, there's some grant.
It's the capital
income.
stuff.
There was the
It
grants.
shows all the revenues coming in, the grants, the local grant, the insurance recovery money, and then transfers in from 410 and also from outside as well. Like that ARPA money we transferred in, 150, that's on there as a revenue. And then you'll see as expenditures, the transfer out that we do. And in reality, when we report these to the state auditor, it's reported together, like 410 and 440. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Dave, we discussed this a bit last time, but can you maybe run through again what the depreciation expense of
Yeah.
152?
Yeah, we're depreciating up here, that's on.
Yes, that's an
Yes.
expense,
Only in the
but it's
government.
not an expenditure. So what that means,
Oh, boy.
well, what that means is an accounting thing. So that ARO and depreciation expense are basically not money out the door. It's just, it has to hit here to show for the auditors, then it goes against the asset on your balance sheet.
So,
And that's
So
just,
the asset value increases.
so is it,
commensurate.
so if you say it doesn't count, when you get down here to the
It's not
total,
an
it's
actual-
not actually.
well, it is included in that total, but it's not really a cost.
Right.
Just like that pension, there's another one that it looks, it's a negative.
Yeah,
Expense.
yeah.
Sometimes it's not negative. It depends on how the state, does and their pension investments.
Right.
We have to follow this rule, and it's a really
Right.
fun, complicated spreadsheet, takes me 2 weeks to do. Basically, for every single fund that we have that has employees in it, we have to allocate the applicable amount of the state's results to the funds. And this particular year, it was negative expense or revenue, but you still have to call it a negative expense. And so that actually reduces the total amount of expenditures at the very bottom. But then again, it's not a real expense. It's, it's just there.
Yeah, just the cost allocation. I get we're using city services and all that other stuff, but when the cost allocation for all of that stuff, you're looking at, like, it's almost half of the salaries. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's a huge chunk. 200 some, especially when we only budgeted 160, that's,
Well,
Yeah.
you know,
do you remember, most of us.
and it changes from year to year.
Yeah, a couple of
That's
us
the
remember,
thing.
this never happened. This was never here on our budget until when the first year Mac was the harbor master.
Yeah.
And then it started as, and the explanation then was it was for HR services, for you and for your staff, payroll, benefits, all that stuff.
It was about $50,000.
That was $50,000 and it made perfect sense.
Yep.
And then it slowly, maturely has, now it's up to, 204 plus 41,000. And so we're real close to $250,000. And it was that in Mayor Bob's first year. The first year Bob was the mayor, the indirect cost allocation was $250,000. And I remember Bob sitting on my boat telling me, JJ, I'm gonna look into that. And he might have looked into it, and it went down. And then now it's slowly back up again. So, and it seems like it's a pretty squishy number.
Yeah.
It moves around and it has a lot of variables and no one seems to have been able to tell us what the variables were. There's gotta be
Or
some
what you get for
formula.
your money.
There's gotta be
Yeah.
some formula.
It was
that-
absolutely a formula, and I was trying to work with the state auditor to smooth things out, so you wouldn't have as much spikes. Because it's not just the Marina Fund that's experiencing spikes here and there, it's other funds too. Because I was using smoothing in Florida, we could do it, but they didn't allow it here. They were just like, has to be the actual driving factors, you have to use the formula that we approved and blah, blah, blah. So I was trying to smooth things out so it was better, but you can't do that, so.
Now, the other question I have is that the other enterprise funds that pay this don't have public use like we do. Is that not correct? Are there any other enterprise funds that the public
that
uses as they do the
Yeah,
Marina?
that indirect cost allocation, the public use factor doesn't
Well,
factor
I know,
in.
but it doesn't make sense that it doesn't.
Driving factor. Yeah, it's just a cost allocation of the central services that the city has. Legal department, administration,
Our frustration is
human resources.
that the marina tenants pay for all of it.
Yeah.
Pay for all of it without
Exactly.
any outside help from anywhere. So now, in addition to, we're on the hook because we don't make a lot of money, but we also contribute or pay back to the city a fair amount of money each year, more than what we make in profit, according to Paul. And that just doesn't seem right. But it's an emotional argument I have, not a physical, logical argument.
There's a component of it that's derived from development services activity. And of course, you have the engineering allocation too, right?
Right.
And those two, I was trying to argue that, I mean, those are related to your projects more than anything. And those should be 440, not 410. But the argument I got back from the state auditor, and this is not just for Marina, it's for all the funds, it's like it has to go into the main operating fund of the different areas. However, if we get a better timekeeping system, which we're working on with a new ERP, there may be a way around that. We may be able to charge some stuff out for those services directly to the project, so they won't be part of those allocations, but that's a few years out. But I'm working towards that, so it can be charged a little bit more equitable and captured in the project themselves, so that means grant money can actually cover a good chunk of that.
Yeah.
But will it?
That's
We
the
don't
plan.
know.
Yeah, see that's a really nice idea.
Yeah.
It'd be great too if we had grants to cover that type of thing.
Grants are hard to come by.
We need grants to
Right,
cover
sure.
lots of different things.
Yeah.
So how come we're not budgeting for, like the principal reduction of the bond or interest?
Well, yeah, we have
Or-
the expenses to pay the debt service is there, right?
Debt service.
Well,
Yeah,
that's what I'm looking
on the
for.
third
but I don't-
page.
I'm not-
Yeah,
sorry.
go on
Page 3, go bond principles.
Yeah.
And interest, yeah.
Well, I saw that, but it saw that also all the way over, there's no budget for.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking about the debt
Oh,
service
debt
lease?
service, yeah, there's another one that says interest expense.
Oh, yeah, that's the
That's
interest
true.
expense.
Well, yeah, it was
Yeah.
zero.
Well,
budget.
we didn't know that we were gonna be
That's eight-
refinancing.
No, that's a weird one. All right, so here you go. Government Accounting Standards Board, GASB, they keep implementing these fund rules for all the governments to follow. In 2020, this was supposed to take effect and then COVID hit, they delayed it 2 years. In 2022, we have to report leases. It's called GASB 87 lease reporting. So that particular one, 8150, right, the account number 8150, debt service and lease interest.
Yeah,
It wasn't something that that pretty much anybody budgeted for, but it's another thing that we have to account for on our books. But the next row, where it says interest expense 8,300,
Yeah.
that one's related to the bonds.
the bonds.
That's the bond one, and the go bond principal is the bond one. So yeah, those two are bond
I'm
ones.
not seeing it.
Yeah, it's the last,
81.
it's the
Yeah, oh, yeah.
last, the suffix.
The trash, 12,500.
Yeah, 12,000.
Yeah, 12,500,
Oh,
600.
Yeah, 2581.
The interest used to be higher on the old bond, but of course,
Yeah.
the principal came lower, so.
And now, one last thing, we had the transfers in to the interfund, now we've got transfers out. What does that represent?
Oh, intra fund
Yeah.
means 440, fund 440.
Yeah, but what, that
Oh, it's
195,000,
just-
what did we get out of that?
For various projects, I mean, Chris, maybe you can help.
That was for some of the budgeted projects that we had scheduled for 440, which would be a capital improvement project. Some of those were like Wi-Fi,
Okay,
some of the things we did around the docks, the card locks, stuff like that.
okay.
And
So
I
the
think
bigger budgeted.
the match you had
projects.
to do, remember those insurance settlement things?
Yeah,
This is also
yeah,
that.
that could have been part of that
Our
insurance deductible.
So, okay, so that money goes transferred into the other fund and then,
Mhm.
but those things are completed now, right? So,
Right, but they're paid out of that other fund.
okay. Oh, okay.
So the transfers in on page whatever number that is. It's 9 of the packet. Transfers in 902,000. I think that's where it was.
Right.
Includes the insurance settlement funds.
No,
Is that what I was hearing?
that basically, that transfers in,
Yeah.
and that's coming from Fund 440. We have a year-end process where we go through all the different capital project funds in the city, the general fund, capital project fund, water fund, and all, And then we look at what was approved by the city council and the CIP. and we look at how much is left to be spent on various capital projects. And based on that calculation, we look at how much cash is actually in these various capital projects. And if the cash in the capital projects is greater than what the council approved, then we just transfer it back to the home, the operating department, the home department. And that's what happens.
Transfer in would be,
This number
and
is the. is the
excess
bottom line.
expenditure.
It's basically cash.
Because it has to be,
Cash.
because
You
Oh,
had
I
too
see.
much
I see.
cash in one
Okay.
account.
So if there was too much cash.
I don't understand it, but I start.
Well, if I explain how it got that way, you definitely won't
So
understand
it's
it even more. It's all based on capitalizing the asset.
Project surplus is good.
No, because basically, it's a stupid accounting thing. It's, when the asset's done, for the assets built in the capital project fund 440, right? When it's finished, we have to do a calculation, a fixed asset calculation where it becomes capitalized. When we do that, it has to be capitalized in the home fund, which is 410, right? So now you have an asset, which it increased in fund 410, because you have these projects that are done, the asset goes up, minus the depreciation. But anyway, so you have this new asset, but for some reason, the back end calculation in the system balances it by taking cash out of 410 and dropping it into 440. So when I was looking at 410 at the end of the year, I'm like, why did cash go down this much? Then I realized, oh, well, we have to do the year-end process to make sure everything is right. And that's when I caught it, and that's when we're able to move it. Yeah, you're not gonna lose money.
Again,
The thing that I've always argued for is just a simple profit and loss.
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, I know.
The government doesn't do that.
Well, I know.
This is about as simple as it gets right here.
But, and David has, inherited the job and interprets things probably a little bit differently than your predecessor. I don't know.
I follow the rules.
But the rules change
Good.
all the time too. And then you've got the financial standards accounting, well, I don't know
Yes,
what they call it.
government accounting standards.
Government
Yeah.
accounting standards boards who, they're a bunch of square-headed people who put together and decide, how all those numbers are gonna fit out.
I get it.
But we still could very much utilize just a profit and loss.
Yeah,
What
sure.
did we spend, what did we take?
Okay, I have one last question, and I think Byron and I share the same question. So if we go into the last page, the last page, revenue and expenditures by fund. And it indicates, if I read this right, we made $645,000, $194.69. But that should account for the go bond principle, which is already accounted for in the expenditures.
Yeah, it's
So-
included.
So the bottom line is, we did make $645,000 last year. Or we on paper,
On paper, maybe, but if you take out that transfer and then you deduct out the depreciation and the ARO and all the stuff that's not real expenses, you have a trial
That's what
balance.
we
So
covered.
Okay, so that's the best way to look at it is your cash and the trial balance. And right now,
is what?
your beginning balance in cash, and there's other stuff that moved around like accounts receivable and blah, blah, blah. But basically, you started in Fund 410, this is not 440, I'll do 440 next.
Okay.
In Fund 410, your cash balance started at $2.06 million.
Okay.
Starting,
Hold on.
where do we see that?
It's not part of this package.
It's not part of the package.
I just figured I'd bring it so I
Okay,
can
all right.
sound intelligent. So basically, you started at 2.064, right? And then you ended at 1.922. So you spent like about $140,000. But we kind of knew that because we knew the debt service would be higher for the next few years. So that's your cash. And there's like other stuff, like your assets went way up because we finished those projects and all that. Now let's look at 440. So just remember that, you're 1.922. Now 440, you began your cash with 68,000, and your ending cash is 387,000. So your cash went up in 440 to be spent on the dredging and other projects coming up. So together, if you add them together, your cash went up.
So what?
What was the 1,922 number?
So 1.922
Yeah.
plus 387, whatever that number, I don't have that.
Hold on a second, let's do digits.
Basically about a little over 300,000.
1.922, right?
Mm-hmm. Plus 387. About 0.3.
Plus 387.
So we went up roughly 275.
About, yeah.
So 2.3.
2.309.
And
But we started with,
On a cash basis.
would we, yeah.
but we started with
264.
2.064 plus 70, so whatever that is, 2.13.
Yeah.
2.13 to, what was the ending?
2.309.
2.3.
Plus
Yeah, so it went up a decent amount. Of course, you know, there's accounts receivable that went up, whatever. You know what I mean? There's all these other
Sure.
small changes to it.
So in the bottom line, we made about
what is that number?
230,000
Roughly.
roughly.
Your cash
in-
went up by that amount.
So that's not a bad year for them.
Well, but it's, like you said, there is, the cash went up by that.
Was Paul's.
180,000. So that's in the
We're
ballpark.
performing better than the average.
Yeah.
Well, and theoretically, we're a nonprofit anyway. We don't, there's no profit margin.
Right, but we have to be able to make enough money to support
Right.
keeping the marina going and fixing
Exactly.
it and stuff like that, so.
And that's where Paul steps in and says, well, you know, you could closer to your funding your operating costs if you raise your rates.
Well, we're already funding our operating costs.
Well, that's the question.
So
But a lot of it has to do with the debt service to the principal and interest payments on our existing bonds. I still don't understand how those enter into the financials. I mean, it's a cash expense, principal and interest.
Oh, yeah, no, that's a real expense. Oh, yeah.
So,
Just the depreciation isn't.
yeah, depreciation. So if we, in theory, made, you know, a little less than $300,000, but by the time you factor in the debt service,
Well, that's included.
That's
already
included.
in that number. Yeah.
That was, that reduced the,
yeah.
that's about right.
okay.
I'm scared of this for a while.
Okay, so
So
you want to move on?
moving
Yeah.
forward, if you guys want to review financials, just anytime, come up to the office. I can print these up. I'll have a lot of these on file.
Okay,
And it's incumbent upon each of us to you do this, you get jump in there too.
you can just jump in anytime.
Speaking of jumping in, sir, I'm sorry, what's your name and what's your
Mine's
interest?
Josh Ray. I put a boat on the water. We just moved here
Oh,
less than 2 years ago.
Okay.
I wanted to come
Gosh.
check out what was going on, and
Yeah, we
I
realize
had a
this
headache
is,
with all you guys trying to do the math here.
yeah,
so-
this is one of those sessions where it's trying to get a drink of water out of a fire hose kind of thing. So
Yeah.
we apologize for that, but
No, this is interesting.
Thank
Good
you.
stuff.
All right.
You can stay if you'd like.
Anytime.
Oh,
Yeah,
don't you want to hang around for a discussion on rates?
Chris will fill me in.
Yeah.
Sure.
okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
David. It was very good. So,
There's just one more thing. I just did the numbers here, these cash numbers that we had, and that amounts to a $177,000 increase, which is exactly what Paul
Right,
had.
so, yeah, and he didn't have the 2022.
you didn't have this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So we're on track this
We
week.
were
Always
just based on the
Yeah.
average.
Yeah, right, yeah, no,
I thought it was gonna be substantially decreased.
I did too.
Because of the new debt service.
Yes.
Because, you know, we refined those bonds, got a much better rate.
Yeah, there's some things throughout there that we made more than what we projected,
Yeah.
like especially with the diesel and things like that too.
But there are also things that we spent more on, like insurance.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, but we should be thankful we still have insurance, right?
Yes.
Yes, so.
So we had at least two instances where we tapped our own cash for deductible, right?
Yeah, the two insurance deductibles, one was 50,000, one was 25,000.
Yeah, that was a lot of money.
Yeah,
just to pay
that was
deductibles,
unexpected.
And then an increase of 60,000 in premiums.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Well,
It's true. But we have to pay.
I know, why can't we just be self-insured? We don't wanna do that?
We don't want to do that.
Okay.
We couldn't get something.
Well, we're the city.
All it takes to be a fire and wipe us out. That would be the end of the marina.
Yeah. Now we have that
Okay.
cushion.
So over to you, Ken.
Oh, okay.
You're back.
Shoot, I was.
I'm back.
I'm
Yes.
toasting. Yeah. Thank you guys for, jumping in and so forth. And I would encourage you all to take a close look at these financials and so forth and continue the questions and see if you can find answers. David is a good source of stuff, but what we're starting to digest is the changes in the accounting.
Yeah.
Obliterate the public's ability to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
They're hard reports to follow, most certainly.
Well, this is probably the easiest one I've ever seen so far. When
He just showed me that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of it makes sense. Like,
Okay.
It does.
We can use that one moving
What,
forward.
that's the same one?
Yeah, I just marked it up.
Oh,
And we are currently working on an RFP for a new enterprise resource program. Right now, we're using Eden, which is what generates this report. We're looking at Tyler Units is one that a lot of municipalities use. It's a much cleaner version.
right.
So, like David said, it's a little bit of a process. It'll be a couple years out, but if there's a couple different ways to go about this, right? So if you want to stay in the weeds of looking at every line item, but you want a better understanding of, okay, well, what does this represent? What does this represent? We can export this into a sheet and I can like add in those descriptors and things like that. Or if you really just want like
You're talking about
profit
future.
loss summary.
Oh.
Well, there's different ways.
Yeah.
If you want it where you don't need someone to interpret every single
Yeah.
number.
Right.
Yeah,
We can,
That's what we like, yeah.
we can do that work for you either on a line basis or if you simply want a profit loss kind of a summary
Well,
that shows, okay, well, we came out and made 175,000. What that
Well,
delta is.
you gotta understand, there's a lot of different personalities. That's a banker, right?
Yeah.
He wants to see everything. You know, I'm a bottom line kind of guy. And I mean, we're
Yeah.
all in the middle of this. And so I think this worked really well. And if we see this over and over again, it'll become very familiar. And I don't think, well, we're gonna have a new mayor, so we're all gonna go away. So they'll have to do it all over again. Have to do it all over again.
So I guess maybe what would be beneficial is to take this, export it into a sheet, and then have just another column that says what those numbers represent, right? That cost
Sure,
is.
And in some semblance of a profit and loss, so that the average Joe can take a look at it and say, oh, okay, that was your revenue, here's your
Yeah.
expenses.
So, yeah, so, and like JJ says, without a comparison, it really doesn't do much.
Yeah.
And so right here we have what, like here, I look at it and it's great. You can see each item, what was budgeted and what was spent. But what did we have last year? How, you know,
Where are we
how
going?
does
What are
that-
the trends?
Yeah.
Which way are we going? You bet.
And then that way, when you look at everything line by line, you can be like, oh, okay, so we lost money here, we made money here. Just like, here's a big leap, why did it leap so much? Like, be easier to see. And I think it would speed up the meetings a little bit since we're not asking all these questions.
It might help if you saw more frequently, if it was
Yeah.
like part of the packet, every other meeting.
Right.
or
Yep,
every-
Yep.
something like
And
that.
I appreciated having this early so I could make
Yeah.
notes on it and go over
Yeah.
it.
That's right.
So,
Maybe not every,
Okay, the
we can
next,
do it
the
like.
next
I said,
agenda
every
item.
meeting or
Or
something
something
like
like
that.
It was a quarter.
Yeah. I agree, yeah. The next agenda item is marina rate increase, and we're kind of trying to paint a moving bus here or something, feels like. But we know that based on Paul's information and market studies and so forth, and does everyone have this thing?
yeah.
The rate comparisons? I don't know, I was kind of hoping you'd be here, but Chris, do you know what each of these column headings are?
Yes,
Some are
I made
easy.
this spreadsheet. So
Well,
the,
that makes it easy, right?
yeah. When you get your mortgage bill, there's several things built into your mortgage. You pay the mortgage, there's tax on the mortgage. So if you read this left to right, the mortgage, looking at the first one, is 150.11. State leasehold tax on that is 1927. Then we have the environmental compliance fee. then we have the dredge fee, then the state leasehold tax, and then the total. Next to that is the,
Okay, that's last year's number.
no,
this is
that's
23.
that's this year.
Oh,
Well,
okay,
so,
okay, I got it.
so in here it's good.
Yeah, and 2022 is in the next column.
Right, and then how much it increased, what the target percentage was based on Paul's recommendation, and all of these are straight out of Paul's recommendations, except a few, and as we walk through, I can explain those to you.
So, would you elaborate a little bit on the target percentage?
Yeah, the target percentage was the percentage that I extracted right from the presentation that Paul gave us the previous 2 months. So in this category, this 24-foot uncovered monthly mortgage rate category, his recommendation was to move it up 7.5%.
Now, is this, Chris, is this what we're actually charging now for this very line on this 23 line? Or are we still charging the 22 number?
We're still charging the 22 number.
Okay, all right, so that
Yeah.
answers a whole
Yeah.
lot of questions. So this was what the target increase would be
Mhm.
for 2023,
Right,
although we're 6 months into 2023.
yeah, that's the painful part.
Okay.
So as we made the spreadsheet, we actually started with the target percentage, the 2022 rate, and then the target rate. The target rate was more for us as we fine-tune these numbers, because the environmental compliance and the dredge fee couldn't change, right? Those are hard numbers that we need to get. So the only thing that changed was the mortgage. So we had to dial the mortgage in, but it has tax on it, so we're like rounding things to the fourth and fifth, so.
Okay, so let me also, so now if we're, let me just go further down the page. So if we look at this in 2022 or 2023, the target rate would be 7.5%, then an additional 7.5% in 2024, and
Yes.
another 7.5% in 2025.
Yes,
So we're talking about raising 22%
Yeah.
over 3 years.
That's because
Yeah.
Paul told us we were that far behind.
Well, I don't.
yeah.
Well, I like Paul telling me that, but realistically, are we gonna ask the citizens of, and the tenants of the marina to accept, or are we gonna get the council to impose a 22% increase over 3 years?
I think we almost have to, based on our financial situation right now. I don't think it's feasible or equitable for us to keep charging the rates that we're charging and still survive. I don't think that's possible.
Yeah.
Chris, I have a question for you. Is
Yeah.
the mortgage number, all the way over on the left-hand side?
Yeah,
Does that, that wouldn't include for the small slips, it wouldn't include the winter rate thing?
no, there's a whole separate sheet for that as well.
So,
We're talking-
and the other, the 7.5% rate increase is just on the very small.
On the small slips,
Uncovered
but look at
slips.
some of these. We're
Yeah, I
talking
know.
14% over 3 years, at 36% over 3 years.
More than that, 42%.
Well,
Now, how much of that is the, 12 months pay for 11?
Well, that's a whole separate sheet.
Yeah.
JJ's right. This is just for
This
this
would be
uncovered
for-
category.
Sorry, I
Absolutely.
haven't had a chance to do my homework on this.
Yeah, no problem.
I couldn't imagine, first of all, I couldn't imagine recommending this.
Mhm.
And I could not imagine the city council saying, yes, go ahead and increase your rates. Without fixing the issue. All we're doing is, as like Paul said, demonstrating our willingness to contribute more to the marina when we're getting nothing for it. We haven't fixed the issue, and the issue is we have to reconfigure the marina.
Mhm.
And this is not gonna get us to reconfiguring the marina. And all it's gonna do is put an undue burden on the people who are already there, paying for all the freight. And, and now, because mortgage is tight everywhere, people may not have the option of going somewhere else. And
That's why we raised it.
Well, but
His
is it the right thing
comparison
to do?
Yeah, his comparisons are all based on his market survey.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's not saying we have to do a particular thing.
Well, I'm sure, but that's, this is,
But I
I
guess
read this,
a question that I would ask is, at the last meeting, I asked, do you guys feel like we're in a financial crisis? And all of you said
are.
yes.
I think we're in a financial
So
crisis,
this
but
is a
this
step-
isn't the way out.
This is a step in the right
well, it's
direction.
$200,000. Sorry.
It's not,
that you're making money. What are we gonna use the extra money?
it's not the way out. This
Right.
would have, in just, if you increase this, let's just say we increase 15% across the board in mortgage. What is that gonna do to
We
the
have lots of ways to spend money.
$177,000 profit that we've made, or is profit that we've made?
Right.
So what's it gonna increase it by? Another $23,000?
But that's
It
how we
doesn't-
got to the 1.3 that we have, is through rates and nothing else. We have to
We
keep
don't-
building the
Where's this
rates.
1.3? It's not here. It's,
Actually, it's 1.6 starting this year. So
what are we doing with the 1.6?
that'll all be
Nothing.
dumped into
Yeah,
dredging,
yeah, well, yeah.
you know.
And,
But that
and
doesn't fix the issue. The issue is the marina is in the wrong configuration for today's marinas.
It absolutely, I do not disagree with you.
And the only way to generate the revenue that we need to make this marina viable is to eliminate a lot of these 24, 26, and 28-foot slips.
That's
Turn
correct.
them into 40-foot slips where we can get $650 to $800 a month for them. And maybe we can get enough revenue to keep the marina going for another few years. That's not a guarantee either. The marina needs a lot of work, and it needs to be reconfigured, it needs to be updated, it needs to be maintained. And it was built 55 years ago? And it's
Pretty
falling
close.
apart, and we know it.
How do you suggest we pay for all that, JJ?
I don't know. That's the point, is that we belong to the city. You know, we pay
Yeah.
the city to do all this stuff. The city either has to get on board and find a way to fund the marina redevelopment or reconfiguration, or you're gonna rate increase everybody out of the marina. The people will take their boats elsewhere. And I know you say there's not enough room, you know, they've got the marina people over a barrel because there is nowhere else to go.
But how can
This
we-
isn't the right way to do it.
How can we go to the city council and ask for conceivably whatever it costs, say 10 million? It's more than that, but say 10 million, and say, oh yeah, by the way, our rates are 20 to 40% below all other marinas. How can we
It's
do
not,
that?
it's not that they are 20 to 40% less, but it's not that they're undervalued. We get exactly what we pay for at this marina. We're not talking facilities and amenities that they have in other marinas that can willingly charge 20% or 30%
What
more.
are some of those amenities you look for?
A laundry room that works.
We have a laundry room.
It doesn't work. I mean, it doesn't work. I talked to a little board. They said they don't take their laundry there because
It works
they,
perfectly well.
well, all right,
Yeah.
I'm just telling you what a living
Right.
board told me,
Right.
Sure.
that the laundry room doesn't work. Showers, head facilities, you know,
But how do we get to those points? We need to.
you're not gonna rate increase that, you're not
And
gonna
Paul
get,
said that, and I agree wholeheartedly with not rate increasing it,
No,
but I
it's-
think that
it's
we
more
should
a
be
step in the
paying,
right direction.
Yeah.
we
It's
should be
well, but
paying
not
the
a
market value.
36% increase over 3 years.
That 36% increase over 3 years isn't gonna even get us to
Yeah.
the average.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
We are still gonna be way behind the curve.
well, Ryan, you have
What do
anything?
what do we want to do with this?
Well, I agree that the rate, like, if you look at all the marines raise their rates, cost of everything goes up.
Sure.
Cost of labor goes up, cost of insurance clearly has gone up, so we have to raise the rates. And we are maybe behind the other marinas, but kind of like JJ's, right? Like we're Oak Harbor Marina, it's kind of like a bare bones marina, it's trying not to be, but it's not going to be not a bare bones marina off the backs of the tenants. And so I certainly think a rate increase is appropriate. I don't know that to try to make it 36% or 40% I think that's too much. That's my only thing. It's like you're asking, hey, you're gonna pay 40% more for the same product, because if we compare ourselves to these other marinas that have, they have, I mean, you can go around to any of the other marinas and what's around the marina, and I know we have no control over that. What the marina offers, the quality of the docks and all of that stuff is
Oh, yeah.
just, yeah. And I know, and we do have an older marina. right? Like, and there's not much we can do about that unless we start, hey, let's redo everything. And we're not a port district.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah, Chris, as I understand it, we don't really have much of a waiting list except for, what, over 40 foot?
Big.
40?
In the 24s, in the 36s, and in the 40s.
We have a waiting list for those?
Yeah, yeah.
The 20s? Oh, really?
The 24s,
Okay.
the small boat.
All right, okay.
Yeah, yeah, that makes
So Chris pointed out last meeting too, that although you may walk down the dock and see a lot of
Yeah.
empty spaces.
They're on the fence.
They're on the fence, but they're
Okay.
paying for that slip.
Yeah,
But the 40, 50, and 60 foot barges, there's a demand for that,
oh,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
So that seems to me that that's where we ought to be focusing the biggest part. And that's why I question why is the 50 and 60 foot slips seem to be, well, less than the 40 foot slip as far as increase.
I think that the 40-foot slips, you have to kind of think that our rates have fallen behind in certain categories. He didn't look at the marina as a whole, but
Yeah, I
he
know
looked at
he did.
each
Yeah,
size.
yeah.
So that 40-foot category, our rate is significantly lower than the
Yeah,
median
right.
value.
But isn't that true of the 50 and 60 too? Not
Well,
so
it
much?
must have, yeah, it must have been closer to that value.
Yeah, I don't understand the negative target numbers.
The what?
On some of the, well, I don't know what category this is, but on the second page of the thing. The target categories, we have -5%, what's that? Does that-
Oh, that's
Oh,
on,
yeah.
that's on the annual rate. So his recommendation was to raise it. So the annual rate is driven off of the month-to-month rate.
Mhm.
So what he said to do was to lower the month-to-month rate by 5% and not make it a year over a year. It's if you want the annual rate, you pay it all at once.
Oh, I see.
So that's 5% less than the monthly rate.
Yeah, and I have a question about that too. With today's interest rates, that's really not, I don't think anybody's gonna take up on that.
Well, you'd also-
I'd like to pay a yearly rate, but I want more than a 5% break. I was,
Right.
you know.
So,
And that too, that puts some safety in it for the marina because those people, once they pay it, they aren't gonna be checking out for the summertime or whatever.
We don't have too many
Paying
people
in
doing
advance
that.
for a year.
no, I'd say less than.
So that was
five.
one of the things that Paul brought up, and I'll probably get stones thrown at me. Like because there's limited availability elsewhere, like maybe instead of raising, it's all kind of apples and oranges, but instead of saying, hey, your mortgage rate's this, just do away with the annual one unless, like you say, you pay it all at once, give somebody a break or something if you wanted to do that.
Yeah.
And then, because that way you're already bumping it by getting rid of the annual
Mhm.
break,
And many
you're already
marinas have
raising
done
the
that.
rate
Yeah,
5%.
many marinas have done
Well,
that, so.
9%.
Or, yeah, plus whatever else we
Yeah,
are,
yeah, yeah.
5% on top of whatever it is, so.
so.
The other rate that always happens is the state leasehold tax has been at 12% for
Forever.
years. For years.
I can
and
remember.
years and years, 12 point something percent.
Right,
And even in a time of zero interest
Yeah,
rates.
right.
yeah. It
The
didn't
leasehold
change.
tax has been over 12%. And it's just, it makes no sense. It's like, stop it.
Chris, what
I
I,
don't think you're gonna get rid of that though.
No, we're not gonna get rid of it. I
Can't-
think it's
we
getting
can't change
modified.
that.
to something that's more reasonable, but it's, yeah. They're used to it, so it's hard. They mean the state. They're not gonna reverse course just because we complain about it.
Chris, I didn't understand the 2-time mortgage rate. What's that?
Okay, so this is an old thing that we've done for years, that we use a couple of times, well, probably more than that, in the summer from June 1st to September 1st. So if you come into the marina and you want to stay guest mortgage from 7 to 14 days, and Paul recommends we get rid of this, you would get this monthly rate times 2 divided by 30, that's the number of days. So you're saving just a ton of money And it's something that probably goes back to the Leonardi days, I would
Yeah.
almost guess. But on this one, I put a note up here, recommend to discontinue. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I thought that was gone.
yeah, no, it wasn't gone, but hopefully it will be now, so.
Well, if you wanted to offer a discount incentive like that, you could look at what, like, for example, Friday Harbor does. They have a little punch card, like a little coffee card. Show up 5 times, you get 1 night free.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
we could
like,
do something like that. Yeah, it's.
or something along those lines. And I've gotten that punch card every year, and I've tried to get the free mortgage, but I just can't make it up there 5 times. you know?
Right,
So,
So-
Where do we go from here, guys?
Can I go over one more rate here real
Yeah,
quick?
sure.
Actually, a couple more. So
Yeah,
the
go
the
ahead.
small boat contract on page 22, the,
Application numbers on
okay, it's the small boat contract one. The recommended increase was 3%. That would have been like $1.60.
Need
So
to up that.
suggested that to 10%.
Right.
And then that was a different one than Paul had I talked to him about that and he goes, yeah, that kind of makes sense. The last one, the miscellaneous
I
rates,
just got there.
oh, sorry. So the small boat contract
Yeah,
is at 10%.
right.
I'm scrolling up.
You know, I think you could raise that more. You aren't gonna empty out that dock in the wintertime if you raise it
We've got
15%, are you?
I wouldn't think so, but
I mean, that's a hell of a deal, I think.
That's a great
anything
deal.
under
Yeah.
100 is a great deal.
Well, you're
in
darn
my
right.
mind.
That's why I think we ought to try and squeeze a little more juice out of that one.
Well, we can take these topics one at a time. I think that would be the same way of doing it. So this committee is recommending, this is the question, the termination of the annual, 11 months, 12 months paid for 11 months, that part of the contract, and the small boat.
Not the small,
Whatever we
the
call it.
2 week more, whatever it is, the 2 weeks.
Yeah. And anything else at this point? I guess part of my concern is that I'm not, it's not comprehensive at this point, we're just kind of picking up.
Yeah.
These don't represent every size category. So for example, I didn't want to spend the time to, because this is a pretty labor intensive process of identifying every rate for every size category,
Sure.
but to give you the bulk
Yeah.
of the size
Right.
topics basically, so.
Well, and kind of like Ken was saying, like, if we get rid of the annual discount, I'm all in favor of that, as long as that gets counted as part of our rate increase. You know what I mean?
Well, I think.
Not double dip it, be like, hey, we're gonna raise your rate 10% and then take a 12th and then add that to it too.
However, I think it's important to have something that locks people in to 1 year of mortgage, so that,
Sure.
especially if people start leaving the marina, like they did the last time we raised rates, then there's maybe empty slips in the summertime and
Okay.
people are,
So,
people are gonna say, I wanna pay my summer
sure.
rates on cruising.
So let me ask this then. You have a tenant in the marina, say he signs up in January for the year, for January to December, right? We raise the rates, the tenant gets all mad, says, you know what, heck with it, I'm out. And he leaves in July. Is he still on the hook for those other?
That is
If you
correct.
sign,
Yeah,
if you sign a deal,
Yeah.
you're back.
Okay, yeah. There is some merit to that.
I have
can see
no
that.
issue with that. I personally, it's just me personally, I cannot support this as it is. I cannot recommend to the city council, and if in fact does get approved by this body and goes to the council, I will speak against it at the city council, because I think it's blatantly unfair to, over a 3-year period, to raise rates between 38% and 42% for the category of boats we want to keep in the marina. I just think that's insane. I think there, especially now when, gas prices are gonna go up, inflation is high. Asking people, I know it's a recreational activity, and I know boat people are supposed to have resources. Just ask anybody on the city council. They'll tell you that, we're all rich boat owners.
Rich white people.
I cannot support telling people in the marina that they need to pay 42% more over 3 years than they're paying right now, because a study that with the outcome which was all predetermined indicated that we should. And it's goes against everything I know to be fair.
Well, yeah, and I agree with you, JJ, that as Paul gave us his findings and so forth, the operating income is not going to pay for all the reconfiguration.
It is not. We know that.
And that's where there's the potential, or the hope and prayer for the, $5 million from the federal government kind of thing, something like that. But we all have to remember too that when a politician is going into a potentially tough election cycle, they promise everybody everything, and when they can't deliver, they blame it on the opposing party. So we don't know what's going to happen with the grant process and so forth. But what we do have a responsibility to do is to maintain what we have as well as we can until we figure out that kind of stuff.
Agreed.
The engineering studies and so forth are due back when, including the reconfiguration.
It'll be several months, 6, 8, 9 months till all that's figured out.
So
It'll start coming to you in pieces and phases.
So is there anything we can do in the interim in terms of, to get us not all the way up to, market rates or something, but to take that first step?
I would certainly be in favor of a nominal rate increase,
Nominal like what?
maybe 5% a year across the board. I think that makes sense. You can say that to people. You can actually look them in the eye when they say, what the hell's going on here? Say, yeah, that we need to raise the rates 5% a year for the next 3 years. That's a 15% increase over a 3-year period. I could get behind that, and I could justify that, and I could tell the people who I see on the dock every day that this is what's gonna happen, and this makes sense.
If you do that, we're gonna fall behind even further.
Well, is there
Comparison to the
anything
other
that we
marinas.
haven't done? Well, okay, comparison to other marinas.
Another marina, I know, I'm not saying we're gonna be falling behind, we're gonna be more.
But is there anything that we have not done, that the marina has not done, that we've deferred because we haven't had the operating capital to do it?
Yes.
What?
They're like
What?
whalers,
Breakwater.
Breakwater. all of that's, even whalers,
Yeah.
along the main walkway and stuff.
The electrical boxes.
Well, the electrical
Yeah, the
box,
stalls.
why weren't the electrical boxes could have all been rebuilt during the winter. They really could have.
They could have, yes, but we would have put them back out and they'd have been, instead of 1/4-inch steel, they'd have been like 32nd-inch steel.
But any rate increase, even the first year's rate increase, is not going to get us any closer to being able to do that work. It's not. It just isn't. It's just not enough.
I think for the smaller stuff like power pedestals and whalers and stuff, that puts us in the ballpark. Not maybe in the first year, but in the second and third years, we built up the rates over the years. When I first became harbor master, the reserves were about this much.
Yeah,
So over
They were that
time,
much because they had just spent it. They spent it on that
Yeah.
ill-conceived
Yeah,
Charlie
but-
dock.
But on
power.
on an ongoing basis, we were not covering our expenses, our operating
Right.
expenses.
Just go on, Charlie.
Oh, they replaced all the
Exclusive-
power pedestals on
Yeah.
Charlie
Oh,
dock.
but exclusive of the changes to the ramp, increasing the length of the ramp.
Yeah.
And that cost us $1 million or so.
$750,000.
Yeah.
And that pretty much wiped out our
It was,
reserves.
our reserves was exactly $750,000.
But we made a conscious decision to do that.
We won't do that. We won't go
Well,
down that low.
And that was an ADA thing, a lot of it.
Yeah, and we made a conscious decision to do that. And, and we're we've increased the rates almost every year since then. And, and we've not gone 2 years without a rate increase in the Marina.
We had a period in
It was a
time
3-year
in
plan.
like 2007
Yeah,
and on where we didn't have,
We did the first year of a 15% increase.
It wasn't
Everybody left the
seven.
Marina, and then we said, geez, we probably ought not do that.
we
And,
had a couple
No,
years.
there was some, wasn't
well, there was a
everybody.
lot of people left the Marina. And,
So-
some people bought slips over in the Skyline.
I think one of the challenges we have to look at seriously is, and we have to think about this. If we continue on with the rates we have, and they're deeply discounted, there's no
They are.
denying that. What are we gonna look like in 2 years? What are we gonna look like in 3 years? If people believe that these rates are too high right now, what's that increase gonna be in 2 or 3 years? Just because we have a new dock or whatever reconfiguration, marinas are not built it and they will come. It's witnessed in Bremerton. They built that beautiful new marina downtown, and it sat about a third full for years and years. And why? Because the rates were so high. They went from 0 to 60 overnight.
Well, there was another reason why the Bremerton Marina did not fill up, and it's because it's right outside the gate of a shipyard. That had an awful lot to do with it.
It's full
And
now.
they could go all, and they could just go right across the bay to
But-
Port Orchard and keep their
Well,
boat.
probably not from something they did, it's just because there's no available slips. Like if there are no available slips, you go to
You go wherever
go wherever
can tie
you
it.
can.
Yeah,
fine.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And who knows, we could end up in that situation depending upon the economy. But the longer we delay these rate increases, the bigger they're gonna be down the road. There's no doubt about it. And I have to say, if people get upset and leave the marina, they're gonna pay more than these rates
Yeah, that's
to
right.
be somewhere
Yeah,
else.
No, they are.
If they. still
There
have
is
a boat.
no doubt
If
about
they
that.
still have a boat.
Yeah, there is absolutely no doubt they're gonna have to pay more.
Yep.
So we're still offering
That's the other
great
problem, they're selling
value
a boat.
on these rates. I mean, you remember Paul's chart, how he showed the average, and then he put us like at the median value or what it was. We're still like in the lower percentile of the marinas around here
With the increase.
with the increase.
Yeah.
So do you have a recommendation for us, Chris?
This is
This is the
the
This
recommendation.
isn't Paul's, this is you, right?
This is all straight out of Paul's with the exception of
But
the,
this is your
Small.
recommendation.
yes, this is the recommendation.
I can't get behind that.
So you're talking about page 20.
Just the whole package.
But
It's the whole
yeah,
package.
Yeah.
so like when you look at, here's
I'm sorry,
15, that's okay.
I was being
It shows what
social and.
what we're supposed to do is 23, 24, and 25 right there.
Yeah.
Like, let's say you have a 40-foot boat, 14% this year, 14% next year, and 14% after that. That's a significant chunk.
42.3% over 3 years.
Mhm.
That's too much. That is too much. Ask people to pay for no tangible improvements.
Well,
No,
That's-
you can't
that's a given.
go to them and say,
no, I'm agreeing with you, but I'm saying the alternative is we lose the marina.
it's not, that isn't the alternative.
I think it is.
I don't think it
It's
is.
crumbling.
It
Yeah.
is crumbling. That's right.
that
You
was
think
the
it's-
fault.
And
it's
the
gonna let them
city's
in?
gonna have to step up,
Yep.
that's for sure, but they aren't gonna step up if we don't show.
We don't step up.
Yeah, if we don't step up.
I don't buy that. I don't buy that. The city, well, that's just me. I'm just one voice, lone voice in the wilderness here.
No,
And I will go to the
We
city
understand.
council and I will tell them, I think this is absolutely wrong.
Sure.
And as a parks, the guy who's in charge of all this, you have to know that this is wrong. You have to. It's too much money to ask somebody who's, living on their, somebody, Les Cummins lives on a fixed income, for him to go out and spend this much more money to keep his boat here. For nothing, for no tangible improvements,
But
in
again,
the
if
short
he-
term,
If he goes anywhere else, he's gonna pay more.
Yeah.
Whether it's shoreside or another marina or what have you, this is still a really good value.
I think
I don't
I
wanna
think it
use
won't
that
be,
term,
I don't
value.
think it'll be the lesses. or anybody like that. I think it'll be the boats that they're paying that slip fee every month because it's easier to pay a slip fee
And take the.
than it is to put their boat on the hard. It's just a floating water storage that never gets used. Those boats will leave. And then, because they'll go on the hard, because it's a lot cheaper to be on the hard, especially if you're not using it. Which, in my opinion, is good. It opens up more slips, but are people going to come to a marina like ours just because we have available slips?
Either way, you're taking a guess.
Right. It is.
Whether they will or whether the city will contribute funds, or whether a grant will come out of nowhere. And I can tell you, we've been
Grants don't come out
searching,
of nowhere.
high and low, and it's been rough. It's been rough, so.
Yeah, in terms of improvements, that's, I'm just talking about survival
Yeah,
Right.
right.
and routine maintenance and all that,
Mhm.
But
Things are
metal and
getting
solid-
expensive.
I
Metal,
assume all you
wood,
guys have
paint,
taken a
all that
look
stuff.
at the floats from the launch ramp.
Yeah. Well,
You know, there's hardly any usable metal pieces or wood pieces left. I mean,
They replaced them.
they're fixing all that.
I can hear you.
My thoughts are that I hear what you're saying. That is a painful when you're talking about a 40% increase. You have to ask, well, what does that turn into, right? So you're looking at $50 a month more over 3 years, a 3-year period for a 24.
Well, forget the 24.
10.
Go to a-
Yeah, because
go
we're
to-
trying to get rid of those.
Go to a 40-foot.
Right, yeah. So 100
Or
that's
not
that's
get rid of
where
them,
the
but
market is.
reduce the numbers. That's probably the
Right.
wrong word.
I mean, I think everyone understands, all right, you need to be at least competitive in the marketplace. So it really is opportunity cost, right? Okay, well, I can pay additional to stay here, or I can pay more to go somewhere else out of spite maybe. But ultimately it comes down to, and I think what your argument is the amount really doesn't matter. What matters is do I feel like I get good value for what I'm paying for, right? So do I see an increase or improvement in the amenities, in the condition of the marina directly related to this fee, which is what the fee goes towards, should go towards operation. Now that pays staff, which there is a cost of living increase to that, right?
Sure.
There's an inflation increase every single year. The marina has to have a business plan that keeps up with that. I think what we're trying to do here is we have to make an adjustment first, because we've allowed ourselves not to keep up with that. And so we've fallen more and more behind. If we don't make at least a slightly painful growth increase now, that becomes much more painful down the road. If there is, and I don't know what that number is, right? What you say 5%, okay. Is there somewhere between a 5% and this, 40% over a 3-year period that is palatable for ship owners? Well, I guess I'd love to hear
I've got a
from
million thoughts. I'm trying to be quick.
from users,
How much
right?
has it increased over the last 10 years? I mean, inflation's been 7% the last 3 years. What
It's
is
been 3%.
About
over
three,
the
it's
last
been a
3
typical
years.
3% a
3%.
year.
And we have fallen behind the market.
We
had
shopped
markets
around. It's
that-
definitely cheaper than Anacortes.
Oh, yeah.
We live in
Yeah.
Elk Harbor. We
Right.
picked here because it's easy to get. I can jump on the boat and go sail
Sure.
quick and easy.
Yeah.
But what has it been is one thought, and I generally agree 40% is a big number, but what's the money going to? Because if you have a plan, I think people will tolerate that. If you're
Yeah.
raising it just to raise it, just to keep up, then that's tough as a regular
That's what it
person.
is.
But if you
No.
know we're gonna fix
It
this
is.
and add
Myron, we
this.
don't
No.
have a plan.
No.
We don't have a plan. As much as I admire your thinking, we don't have a plan. The plan has to be to reconfigure the marina and to keep it going. And,
Ultimately, yeah, we all agree.
and,
But I agree here too, if you don't, you're gonna run out of money at some point, because cost of living, everything's
Right.
increasing. If you
Yeah.
don't,
And I think we're starting to make progress with the city council in convincing them that there has to be some city money involved in it. And this is gonna help that happen, I think.
well, I'm not sure it will.
And yes, I do absolutely agree on that side of it. It is a public facility. In fact, there are public facility districts that are taxing authorities that you can get tax dollars directly for places like that. Since we're a municipal owned marina, it's something we're looking into. But I agree, there should be general fund help, especially with some of the larger capital items. And David and I are working on that right now, trying to maybe change the enterprise
You know,
model.
if I knew that my 14% increase or whatever it was gonna get me a new power pedestal out of my slip, I'd say go for it. I have no guarantee of that.
Not right out of the gate, you don't.
I don't. You know, Chris knows, I painted my own power pedestal, so it wouldn't corrode anymore. You know, and I think that's what the average marina tenant is gonna ask. If I'm gonna be asked to pay another 14%, what am I getting?
Mhm.
I
And
can't
the-
answer that.
And the problem is, and I've talked to you about it, I use my wife as an example. Had to replace the bilge pump and a whole bunch of wires and tubing and all that other stuff. She couldn't see it. It wasn't all that expensive. She complained that I was spending the money. I had stainless steel windows that I put in that she could see that cost just dwarfed the amount of that. But she's like, oh, that's pretty. I like that, you know, but we're still having to fix the bilge pumps on the marina.
That's
And
exactly
when we're not to the point where we can put the stainless steel windows in yet. But
Yeah.
Good.
And we know that we're putting lipstick on the pig. Pig doesn't like it, it doesn't make them look any better. But the alternative is to not have a marina, I think.
I would agree with Byron that we're making headway with the council. But I would hate to lose that headway because of something like this. And there's still no guarantees.
Are we ready for a motion?
Sure.
Okay,
Good luck.
yeah, I know. I move that we implement these increases and discontinue the things that we recommend discontinue, except that I would also move that we make some provision for an annual mortgage, just
Discounted annual.
discounted annual mortgage or some, let's see, I want to see some way that we can, that it's harder for people to leave for the summer.
1-year contract.
One-year one-year contracts.
That they would continue on as they are with the monthly payment.
Yeah.
Are you talking about, does your motion anticipate a series of annual increases or just for 2020?
No, I think the proposed,
trying to go for all three,
the
right?
proposed rate increases over 3 years.
I think you should modify the motion to, because I am all in favor of doing away with the things that you had indicated, the ×2. I'm in favor of doing away with that. I'm also in favor of, part of that was doing away with the sign up for 12, pay for 11, right?
No, I would like to preserve.
Replace it with something.
Okay.
Some kind of discount that.
Yeah,
Well,
some discount
I think if-
annual that locks you into a year's.
I think if we're going to make a motion to say, hey, we're gonna do these target rates, then if you do away with that, then you're double pumping them for an even bigger one, you know what
Yeah,
I
I
mean?
would make a clean motion, Byron, to recommend this to the council. Just make a clean motion for that. One I can't support, but I just recommend, make it a clean motion. This way we're not, Chris doesn't have to
Right.
pull the bits and pieces of things.
Well, okay, except that we've recommended that
discontinue
discontinuing
some of
but we've discontinued the annual mortgage, which I'm opposed to that.
Well, you could say, I recommend this entire packet and continuing the monthly payment on the annual mortgage.
That's
So nothing changes except the rate on the annual mortgage
Well, you had to
monthly
discontinue
payment
it
on
on
the annual. Okay, yeah, I'll go with
Yeah.
that.
versus a one-time payment,
Sure.
something like that.
You haven't discontinued it on here, have you? Or-
No, I haven't, but what we did on here is we put the annual contract as a one-time payment.
Oh,
And-
gotcha.
and what Byron's saying is to keep it extended over a period of 12.
Right.
A
As long as
monthly
you pay,
billing
them,
cycle.
as long as you
Yeah.
agree, sign up. for the
Sign
year.
sign up
Just
for a
like
year's
we've got.
contract, yeah.
But
Yeah.
with a deeper discount than what was indicated?
No.
How about if you want to pay it all at once?
Oh, you know, that, well,
Just to,
That would be a little.
so what is,
Yeah.
what we have now is pay for a little 11, you get 12, right?
yeah,
Right. We just took the number times 11 divided by 12.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, I'm not gonna be able to repeat this motion. So is the motion to adopt the rate increases?
adopt the rate
Proposed-
increases,
Proposed rate
and including discontinuing the things that we want to discontinue,
increase,
except
which is
for,
primarily the two times.
Yeah.
Whatever
Yeah.
that's called.
yeah,
And.
and retain the annual, the discounted,
At the higher rates.
yes,
Okay.
Spread out over
yeah,
12
spread out,
months.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
A monthly payment on
the
it.
monthly payment,
Okay.
Yeah.
For the, I don't know, this is, what's the time frame here for, this is for
23, 24,
23,
Yeah, so you want to talk about
25.
implementation?
Yeah, so is before you make a decision on that, on the front memo page is a calendar of how we would do this.
yeah, it seems like it's a long time before we start.
So we have the meeting today, we have a workshop presentation on the 28th. In the July 1st newsletter, we announced that there is a possible rate increase coming down. July 11th, we get city council authorization. Then in September or August and September, we announced that the rate increase is going to happen, and we do that through the newsletter, emails, like we've done it in the past. And then we, October 1st, implement the new rates. Now, we could roll that back to September, but that's really a transition time where a lot of people are leaving, a lot of summer people are leaving and that sort of thing.
Right.
That's why I chose to move it out to October, but we could feasibly do it in September. It would just, the chances of it getting messy are pretty
So
good
then-
at that time frame.
So then if we're gonna do it in October, each of the 3 years will be in October?
No, then
That would start the calendar.
that would, what we would do at that point is we've already, by then we will have given up several months of the
Yeah.
increase. Then we would jump into January with the 2024 rates. So the 2023 rates would start October, 2024 rates.
So you'd have a
28%.
increase.
Yeah,
in-
yeah, that's
Well,
probably not.
another thing that we could do is we've raised rates in April. The big thing is to not get caught up in that May through August timeframe of raising rates. So we could do that. That's a possibility as well.
Yeah, I'd say if you do it in April.
Well, what would be wrong with, okay, say, hey, we've implemented this, October 1st, every October, we'll just raise our rates. Like, that's a year's worth. I know we've missed 10 months of 2023, but like in October, then in January, you get another 14%.
Right.
Like that's,
Right, that's a
or
lot. I get it.
12%. It's the bigger boats that I look at, you know.
I would think that
12%,
people would hopefully
14%.
focus on the savings they had in the past 10 months.
Yeah.
You know, that,
No.
That,
And,
people will
that
never
people
look at
think
it.
like that?
Huh? No.
Yeah, especially after I have my all tenants meeting.
so that's kind of the schedule we laid out.
Okay. So you want to try to repeat your motion, Byron?
Yeah, I move that we go with the recommended rates, discontinuing the recommended discontinuations except for making a provision for an annual contract paying 11 monthly payments.
Okay. And a 1-year lease term or whatever. you
What,
call
yeah,
it.
what, yeah.
Um,
It would be 12 annual payments for the annual contract,
Okay, but based on,
11 months.
okay.
Spread
All right.
the
You don't
annual
actually-
contract
You
over.
get
Yeah.
1 month free, but
Yeah,
over the.
Yeah, I
12
got
months,
you,
right,
yeah, okay.
But
The way that we're doing it now, but.
Yeah.
you would actually make money if you just said, hey, you sign your contract, you get a 10% discount.
But that's still a little bit, who knows where the interest rates are going.
I don't want to, kick this can down the road and keep having meetings and so forth.
The farther you do, the further away from October. you
Yeah.
get.
Yeah. And so I would like to maintain the calendar moving forward, but does it feel like we need to have another meeting of this group in order to make sure that we validate the numbers and what we think we're doing? Or I don't know. What's your sense?
Well, what do you mean validate the numbers?
Well, everybody's going to do the math on their own slips and figure out,
Yeah.
holy crap.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've already done that. It's probably a waste of time. But if we're ready to get into the calendar with the council for a workshop and so forth, does this group feel like we need to meet before that?
What's the next workshop?
So.
Well,
we're looking at the-
So we,
The workshop is the 28th, right?
Yeah,
28th of Jan.
due June 15th for the packet items.
So along Ken's lines, we could take August and September out and just use September as the announcement and still target October 1st and push us back to the workshop in July.
That all
But
assumes that the
that's,
city council is gonna go along with this.
well, it's not, we have to start with the workshop.
Yeah.
Right, and we're treating that as a workshop, not an action.
That's right. It's just
So
an
we'll come
informational
back to
They
them
won't take
again
action.
anyway. So that gives you another meeting if you want to change anything for recommendations as well.
It's a cumbersome process, no matter how.
It's not easy,
Yeah.
but, there are options in the schedule.
So the presentation would be at the June 28th City Council workshop, right?
Yes.
And at the workshop, you would present Paul's study.
Yes.
Okay.
He'll go
Already
first and
seen-
then I'll
They've
go.
already seen Paul's study. right?
They have not seen the
Yeah.
rate
The
study.
rate,
But
but
they haven't seen the rate
part of
breakdown.
it. Do I have a second from a motion? Apparently not.
Can I say?
No, you have to, yeah.
Why not?
Yes.
You vote.
You can-
You vote.
Yeah, I
You
can second.
it.
Okay, I'll second. Further discussion.
Again, I think that the 7 and 10%, whatever, is okay. I'm more concerned about the bigger votes. When you say, hey, what's the inflation rate been? And we have to play a little catch up. Going above the inflation rate by 3% is reasonable. Going above the inflation, almost doubling it is like, that one's tough. But I'm worried about those 3 top tier categories.
But those are the ones that are most in demand.
Right.
And we're less likely to lose votes in that category, I think, than we are.
Well, votes in that category tend to get used more than the ones that just sit there and are parked in floating reefs.
If I may, and just on the other side, what I hear from you is that as staff, we need to be better at providing a roadmap improvement plan that outlines improvements to the marina.
Yeah.
You could easily communicate. to-
That would definitely be
Yeah,
more
that would-
palatable.
Yeah.
Well, and having some sort of local improvement district or whatever the mechanism is where the general tax, that takes a vote of the people, doesn't it?
Yeah, simple majority.
Simple majority? Oh. That might. Anyway.
And that's
that-
a taxing entity?
Yeah, similar to
Similar
the
report.
swimming pool.
Yeah, oh, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, most counties use it for, art centers, rec centers, different things like that.
I think that kind of thinking should be part of the presentation, so that the city understands clearly that, you know, this is the direction we need to go in order to not drive all our tenants out and address the immediate needs to reconfigure, well, immediate.
That'll
I
be
guess
part of
immediate
the
need is
dredge stuff,
probably,
correct?
yeah.
Yeah, we have a, I'm sure Chris is gonna report on, we have a RCED grant for 2 million for the dredging. That we're presenting on here in a couple of minutes. And so, I mean, we are pursuing like all these different
Right,
funding,
right.
like,
We're trying.
revenue source.
We tried the Cantwell Avenue and that didn't work out. We tried stuff
Sure.
with
We can try
Marks
again
and
next
that
year,
didn't
though,
work
for-
out.
But this
So we're
is
trying.
one piece of, you know, a holistic, comprehensive. How do we make sure that we are being in a position where we can make improvements to Marina that will keep us going for the next 20 years? Right?
Yeah.
But so
And our-
far,
our overall-
it's the only guaranteed piece. It's
Is the rate
is the
increase.
rating, is the marina tenants
Right.
paying
That's
up
correct.
more money.
That's correct.
Right.
It's the one piece we have direct control over. Yes.
Well,
And
Yes.
if it's presented in a way that demonstrates that we're still, you know, based on market, you know, that's always nebulous. But based on market, it's still less money than people would pay in other facilities.
And that's the presentation. You've seen the presentation that
Yes.
Paul's gonna
Yeah.
make. He's not gonna
Yeah.
change that.
Yeah.
No,
And that's a fair and pretty black and white presentation. you know.
And the argument is still there that we don't have all the other
That's right.
facilities that, you know, all the uplands facilities
That's
that we
right.
would like to have, and additional rental space and stuff like that. And, you know, hopefully somebody's still talking to the Navy about moving that fence line a couple hundred feet.
I
I
talked
think
to their
that's
commander
fallen.
recently and
It's
that
not-
was.
that's not gonna happen.
He told me that wasn't even a
The
show.
government isn't in the business of giving up property like that. The only chance we really had to do that.
I'm
Was when they were
suggesting
gonna make
like
it into a
100
homeless
years for
camp.
$1.
No, there was another opportunity. When I was, when John Shork was the skipper of the base and I was the OPSO of the base, there was an opportunity to move that fence line back because Shorky had control. He didn't have to go to
Now
Bremerton
it's
to
a
do that. Now it's all regional.
Well, and now you have to approach it more from a legislative standpoint
Yeah,
and
right.
put pressure on the purse
Yeah,
strings of the, you know, the locals.
And then they built famous Bob Hyde's Folly. The moment they put all those trailers in
Oh,
there,
yeah.
that was
Oh,
Bob Hyde's.
that was
Bob
wonderful.
Hyde's
wasn't it?
Folly. Yeah, that was, and they would have at that point, before they did that, Shorky would have moved that fence. He would have. Had it-
I'm going to call tangent because there's not enough alcohol in the room to get that far.
That's
off.
right. That was
Yeah.
pretty far off. Pretty far.
Did you want to hear from the public?
Pardon me?
Did you want to hear from the
Public comment
on
on
that?
this item?
I don't know.
My, just what I said before, I think like, what's the money, I haven't heard what the money's for here. If you're gonna, if I'm on the city council and you're saying we're gonna raise rate, I mean, I'm on boards, I run companies, if somebody says we need money and they don't tell me why,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna just raise rates. The other thing, the 40-foot boats, I'm wondering, are those Oak Harbor people that have 40-foot plus boats? And do we have a responsibility to Oak Harbor people, or are we just trying to build boats so that somebody from the San Juan Islands can park their big boat here because it's gonna make more money? And I don't know what your directive is there, but I don't imagine there's too many local people that are looking to park their 60-foot boats.
I don't know.
70
That-
foot, we
that's-
found out through the business plan study that 75% of our tenants are from Island County, with 50% of that 75% coming from Cookville and Oak Harbor. And that would encompass the whole spread of the marina, including those bigger boats.
And I don't know if that's right or wrong, if they're gonna pay, but
It's,
getting rid of boats that local
that's-
people need,
yeah.
so somebody else
That
can
is a
park their boat.
concern, and we've always factored that in at, you know, we had sort of a budget number of, that we felt that we couldn't charge more than about 80% of the market
Yeah.
slips for that reason, you know, so- because we know we cater to the citizens of the community.
and typically the smaller boats that they
Yeah.
take fishing and crabbing.
Yeah. That's true too. But we have a motion on the table, made and seconded. Call for the question.
Any more discussion?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have 2 for and 2 against.
Against.
Okay, so the motion fails for lack of a majority. So where do we go from here, guys?
Well, the city has no reason to not present this study to the council at the workshop.
Mhm.
But we'll let them know that your recommendation
That we have not voted
was.
to.
And I'll be more than happy to go there to the workshop.
2:00 on the 20th.
And where? Is it here? It's right here.
Yeah, and probably because of the technicalities involved and so forth, it'd be a good idea if most of us attend, if not all of us. Because they will have questions. I certainly still have some.
I hope you don't misunderstand my objection to this.
Oh.
I am fully committed to the marina. I just don't think this is the right thing. And you know, I agree that we're at a financial crossroads, but this isn't going to get us out of the financial crossroads. It is not going to overcome the issues we have. And if we had a roadmap that said, with this much increased revenue,
That's kind of.
this much increased revenue, we can accomplish this, this, and this, then I could get behind something like that and sell it to the people who I talk to at the marina, which is a lot of people. You know, it's just hard. When I looked at this, I knew it was coming, but I didn't realize that over three years, we were talking about a 42% increase. You know, for bigger boats.
Ease that off.
Yeah, that it has to.
Right.
I mean, it's just not palatable and it's not sellable, and it will cause so much angst with the people who are there. They may not have anywhere to go, and they may begrudgingly pay it, but it's going to create so much ill will.
I think along with the improvement plan also showing this is what will not happen or stops happening if we don't increase rates.
Right.
Basically what the impact is if you increase rates, if you don't increase rates, either way, what's the impact?
Well, you know, we can't predict the future as far as, you know, what dredging costs are going to be and all sort of thing. And the cost of reconfiguration and the financial benefit from doing that and so forth. But it should be something that, where we described that, you know, this is kind of a step in that direction of the long-term plan, reconfiguration. Not just maintenance dredging, which has to be done as well.
Sure. Yeah.
And
I don't know, I gotta think that one through.
And I looked at it, my objection again, like I said, is just those top 3. And I don't even have a vote in those categories, but I look at that and I'm like, man, that seems like an awful lot. Almost had me swayed with, that's the ones that are more in demand. So, all right, sweet, they're more in demand. So let's do that. But is it fair? Is 14% fair?
Yeah.
You know, and
Well,
if they
it's
get
fair
better
if
and
you
go
get-
somewhere else, they're going to certainly pay more.
Yeah, that's right.
But that's
That's what makes it fair.
I think
That's
one
a
of the
big jump
challenges
in that short period of time for them.
is that we've let ourselves get so far
We
behind,
have,
by,
yeah.
by no fault of anybody.
Yeah.
Right.
That now we have to play catch up because
Agreed.
we're almost subsidizing mortgage in a sense, right?
Sure,
And we can't continue to do that.
but I agree.
I don't
But like
see-
if it was scaled back a couple of percentage points,
I don't see how we're subsidizing mortgage. We get what we pay for at the Old Harbor Marina. We get nothing more, no less than, you know, I've heard it described as a floating mooring buoy. You know, there's nothing here. We still haven't figured out how to provide water to all the docks when the temperature goes below 32 degrees. You know, there's a lot of
last year
things.
was a lot better.
Yeah, it was. And
Even ever it blows out their water lines.
God bless you. I mean, I
Yeah.
admire and respect what you and your crew do, and I've told you this 100 times. tremendous amount of respect for what your crew does. But it's not enough. You
It's
know,
all we have.
I know, I
I
know,
mean, we're pulling out all the stops every day, so.
it's not enough. Maybe it's fund another employee or another, or two employees. Maybe that's one of the keys. Maybe that, you know, we're gonna actually put on more people. And we'll have more people there to catch a line if you need it. Or we have more people there to fix the power pedestals, or more people there to fix the whalers. And you know, and maybe that's what we need. Maybe you need to plus up your staff. You know, where you have more people and you're working 6 days a week.
You mean to answer the question of what do I get?
What do I
for it?
get?
Right,
Yep.
yes.
So where are we going now? You're gonna present this to the council? Should we come up with an alternative proposal?
I am going to talk to Brian. I may not present to the council June 28th.
Okay.
We'll see.
Maybe we could put our heads together and do as Byron says, come up with a more reasonable
But
set.
that takes a meeting.
Yeah.
Public body.
Well, okay, then maybe we come in, we roll up our
Yeah.
sleeves and we sit around the table and we come up with something that we can all live with.
Okay, now, just on a tangential subject, since we came to a tie vote here, what's happened to our fifth member?
He's out of town.
But he hasn't been to a meeting in forever.
4
has he?
months, 5 months.
Yeah.
You are
That's
looking
all I
for
really
another-
want to say right
Yeah,
now, is
yeah.
he's out of town.
Okay,
Okay.
We know it's a problem.
we got you.
Okay.
We got you.
Yeah.
Could we all
Problem
meet,
is not gonna resolve itself.
no, could we meet again at a mutually agreed upon time, get it published and
Instead of
Come-
a special work session.
come up with something that makes sense?
Sure, but what kind of lead time do we have? Public disclosure lead time?
You
We have to have.
In 10
Oh, it's
days?
pretty quick. No, it's not even that.
Oh, I thought it was.
Okay. Well,
It's a week, or 5 or 7 days, I can't remember that.
okay, well, let's,
And it's
Try to
got,
put
it
that
has to
together.
be open to the public, right?
yes, and broadcast.
Right. And could we do it, could we do it
No, I
afterward?
don't think you need to broadcast it.
Sure. Really? Oh.
We record it for minutes, but.
Oh, okay.
Could we do it after work instead of at 3 o'clock?
I'm guessing, yeah. we could do that.
Chris, is that doable or?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the calendar. I have some time off on
June
that.
28th, so
Everybody's got their cruising plans.
Well, not me. I am
Potentially-
celebrating my 50th wedding anniversary.
With us?
Not with you.
I don't know about it.
Say 50?
50.
Congratulations.
50.
Oh, congratulations.
On the 9th of June. And
Kathy's got tremendous
I know,
patience.
she's amazing. She's the patience of a saint. But we're going to Ireland
I
and
like this.
Scotland
Is that Motherland?
Oh, well, we have family.
we're gonna be back.
I'm gonna be back. We're going in July. We're going in
Oh,
the 18th of July. So
And maybe
So,
if we can
so
get
what
it
if we
done
could get this
Yeah,
done
no, that's
before
not-
the
workshop.
28th workshop?
Yeah,
Or
Because
the
they only have one
28th,
on
yeah, workshop.
through June.
Chris, can we get this done
So
before the
that's-
28th workshop?
No,
Why?
because all the documents are due on the 15th. And I'm actually going to be gone the 8th through the 12th.
What about that week, 13th?
Well,
13th.
based on documentation, we can submit these documents, can't we?
We can, but they won't be whole and accurate. They won't, if there's gonna be any changes. We could do the 14th, the evening of the 14th, 15th.
Okay.
The 19th, 20th.
I'm available that week, the 13th, 14th, 15th, if we wanted to do any of those days. The following week, the 14th is a Wednesday.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's Flag Day.
So
No, I had that.
my
I'm just
plan for
curious
that
about mine.
meeting would be to come back here with this paperwork, and we're gonna sit down and go through each category, right? Is that what you guys are thinking?
Well, I'm thinking that maybe we individually look at what rate increases we think are acceptable in those categories. And it might be that it's 5% or 6% all the way across the board. It might be it's targeted at different slip sides. So I don't know, what I'm prepared to do is come back with a plan. And maybe we can all have a plan and see where it all falls together.
What, as far as public disclosure and all that, can we each come up with something and send it around to each other without beforehand or not?
We can do it by blind copy, yeah.
You can't
So we can
respond
send it
each
to
other.
you, and then we can